Let's take a look at what happened at the SAPS Inquiry at the Ad Hoc Committee this week. The National Director of Public Prosecutions, Shamila Batohi, told Parliament that there have been concerted attempts to compromise her and her colleagues. She also said South Africa is not winning the fight against organized crime. We speak to retired Ambassador Andy Mashaile, who's a security analyst and former Interpol Ambassador. Mr. Mashaile, good to have you on the program this evening. So, National Director of Public Prosecutions, Shamila Batohi, describes South Africa's crime crisis, for instance, as a slow-motion movie where criminals are taking over. Let's speak about this. From a security and Interpol perspective, for instance, given your background, do you agree that South Africa is losing the battle against organized crime?
I'll flip the coin, and good evening to you and to your viewers. I'll flip the coin and say the leadership that is tasked with the responsibility to prevent crime, to combat crime, and to detect crime has dropped the ball. And therefore, saying and suggesting that we are losing the fight against crime only seeks to absolve the responsibility of those who are in the leadership position, including those who have been fingered to be corrupt within the NPA, the South African Police Services, and also as per the allegations of Ntate Ntantam Kwanazi, those in the judiciary, those who are in the prosecution. So it is not correct for us to be told that the escalation of crime is as a result of us not being able to deal with crime. Leadership should take responsibility. Those who are at the top of law enforcement, prosecution, and the judiciary should tell us a story that we want to hear, and that is the reduction of crime and combating of crime, as well as the prosecutions that would lead to incarceration of those perpetrators, and therefore reducing the number of criminals. Ndanta, we have 500,000 criminals in South Africa and 64 million people. So we cannot at any point in time give in to those constituting the 500,000.
You blame leaders, but Batohi herself emphasized that both SAPS and the NPA have become environments where we don't know who to trust, from her words. How dangerous is this level of internal infiltration that we are hearing about for a country's security architecture, if you will?
Nkanta, for the security, for the national security, for your security, personal security, and organizational security, as where you are seated becomes a national key point that must be protected at all costs, that must be safe and secure. This speaks very bad of us internationally. It is also important that I should indicate to you that when we sit in these positions of responsibility, we get briefings. And if we don't get briefings, we must ask for intelligence. There must be a continuous threat risk assessment that happens all over the space. Let me take you a step back or a few hours back when Mr. Stuart Shanik said the police must go and check his background. What happened yesterday by the KwaZulu-Natal police services in terms of going in and pulling 29 more dockets or cases, changing and tarnishing the confidence that was put forward by Ntate Stuart James, suggests that those who are at leadership, when there are talks of this nature that NPA, SAPS is infiltrated, there must be those who are at the echelons. They must investigate, they must gather intelligence, and they must act on that intelligence, particularly when the elements of crime are visible to one and all, those in the office and the boots on the ground.
We've also read worrying articles that point to crime intelligence and even the NPA being compromised. Let's speak about this. What mechanisms should be urgently implemented, in your view, to clean up intelligence structures without actually destabilizing them even further?
Nkanta, let's draw this scenario as I did a few hours ago with some of my colleagues in this space. Let's generate a scenario what do you think would happen if you were to put Ntantam Kwanazi as the national commissioner and look at those who are at the national level? We are now talking post the retirement of General Masemula. Those who are involved, those who are alleged to have been committing crime now as we talk. When you put a person like General Ntantam Kwanazi as the national commissioner, the dominoes below him are going to fall. Those who are doing wrong things automatically will run away because of the hurricane nature of his way of doing things, destroying all of the negatives in the crime prevention. So I'm using Ntantam Kwanazi as a national commissioner just as an example. When you change leadership and you get a different leadership that is prepared to say, the buck stops with me here. None of you is going to leave this office before 1600 hours. As we know, some of them leave their places of work long before the time that is in the performance contract. So long story short, I'm saying put a new leader as the head of the NPA. And you're going to say to me, who do you think that we can have there? Collapse IDEC in the NPA, collapse IPIT into the newly envisaged Office of Public Integrity Against Corruption, OPI or OPIAC if you want to, and get a person like Ndimu TV, get a person who will get things done. Ntanta, when you change leadership and when that leadership understands what needs to be done, this will change the face of safety and security, crime prevention, crime combating, crime detection, prosecution, as well as incarceration. Remember, this is a value chain from the policeman in the street until up to the prison warder, looking after this individual called Andy, who's been stealing sweets all over the world.
Mr. Mashaile, also interesting is that Batohi mentioned that organized crime syndicates are specifically targeting prosecutors. From your experience, how common is this practice or direct targeting of law enforcement officials, especially by criminal networks, and how should South Africa then protect its officials?
Ntanta, organized, transnational organized crime syndicates and local organized crime syndicates, they look at the system, they look at the criminal justice as value chain or system. They are specifically looking for vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities would be those that have their kids at university, those that have their kids at this private school or that private school, those who cannot afford. Remember Rabua Kumsebeting and Tantam struggling ABCDFG, and that particular person that you work with might have a relative or a friend who is in an organized crime syndicate. They're going to talk, they're going to target you. You receive a gift of about 10,000 for payment of the school fees, and you get told, if you give me this information, 50,000 is in the bag for you. So organized crime syndicates, very smart, very strategic. They employ strategists, amongst others, and analysts to go into any system, Ntanta. So the only way and manner in which we can deal with this situation is to, number one, accept that there is no foolproof system. As long as there's a human being in there, the system might be compromised and corrupted. All over the world, there is no foolproof or foolhardy system that will ensure that there is no corruption. Long story short, we have a responsibility to make sure that government takes care of those who are in the security services as well as the armed forces, so that you don't find yourself in a situation where the traffic officer lives in a house of 3 million rands, and this particular person is at a junior level. He or she is just a constable doing work out there in the streets, in the highways and freeways and byways of our country. We have a responsibility to look at the welfare of security forces as well as law enforcement agencies.
Also alarming is this stat that we are hearing, that the Hawks are reportedly operating at, what, 50% capacity? In practical terms, what does this then mean for South Africa's ability to investigate high-priority crimes such as drug trafficking, kidnapping, for instance, and corruption?
I should actually take my hat off to the Hawks and to the former commander, National Head General Libya. They were able to register serious successes. You remember the story of Limpopo, of the 2 billion rands worth of equipment, manufacture of a cocaine manufacturing plant in Limpopo that was busted by the Hawks. Even though they have a smaller number, a 50% operational staff, those warm bodies that have been doing up and downs cleanly so within the Hawks, we need to give them a round of applause. Obviously, it's not all of them who are corrupt and rotten. It will only be a few that must be dealt with. I think as you and I are talking, and hopefully the number one citizen in the country might be watching, we humbly request that those who are responsible for treasury and resources, congregation and galvanization should come to our rescue. Our rescue meaning organizations or units or components like the Hawks, so that you build them so that they can deal with serious crimes like human trafficking, arms trafficking, trafficking in children, trafficking in wild animals. It is very, very important that we decisively invest resources so that our standing in the world should be respected, particularly from a safety and security point of view. We heard the joke about Donald Trump saying he's not coming here because of safety and security, and not taking cognizance of the fact that there have been serious takedowns of drug cartels, of those who are involved in organized crime, cyber crime, and many other crimes that have been happening, including those terrorists who have been arrested from the soil of South Africa and taken back to the home countries to stand trial. So long story short, Ntanta, we have a responsibility, you and I, to start now to call upon government to do good by security, law enforcement, as well as the armed forces, so that they don't use their expertise to sell to sell their expertise to the criminals, like the employee who we are told manipulated the system to clear the record of Mr. Stewart, as we had by Major General Gopal in KZN.
That's interesting. And also, now that we know that there was an alleged attempt, for instance, to compromise officials such as prosecutors, what should be done in instances like that to counter such actions?
Ntanta, you do your lifestyle audits, coupling your lifestyle audits to your high flyer programs. Your high flyer programs would include the kinds of shoes that I wear every day, the kind of watches that I have on my wrist as a constable, changing these big name watches. Also, continuously polygraphing polygraphing those who are in very serious positions. And thirdly, it becomes key and crucial that you vet people continuously. If your vetting process would only happen after 5 years, we would need to go and change that policy and say, yearly, we are going to be doing vettings. We are going to be going to the LCRC and check on Andy's fingerprints and check if there is illicit activity that he is involved in. When you do it within a short space of time, Ntanta, you are then able to instill fear to those young ones or to those ones new ones would be coming into the system. Those who have been in the system, it would be easy to identify illicit activity. Also, Ntanta, the targets that you set for policing, we learned of one person in the Ekurhuleni EMPD who was only able to issue out one ticket in 12 months. What did the supervisor do from a performance assessment point of view, from a contractual obligations point of view? How many of them are targeted to bring firearms per week? How many of them have been targeted or compacted to bring 5 or 10 stolen or hijacked motor vehicles? How many of them have targets that would say the drug identification of drug houses and drug lords and leading to the arrest? I'm now talking about those who are operating in the intelligence space. Our challenge is one in Tanta. We don't want to manage our people. We don't have respect for the mandate of the jobs that we do. And who is the we? Those who are in law enforcement can do better. I know they can do better. And they also know that they can do better when we push them. When we know for 10, 20 houses from where I am, there are people who are involved in illegal mining activities, and the police station does not know in that area, it means there's a problem. That ordinary people know where criminals are, where crime is happening, but those who are charged with the responsibility of patrolling, gathering intelligence don't know. Then it means leadership must get the highest hiding should it come to performance assessment time. Even if it means demotion from that position or that rank that you have, we would need to go to the regulations, to the act. Parliament would then need to review its strategy and tactics.
Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for this chat. He's been speaking to us, giving us perspective, of course, over those proceedings at the Ad Hoc Committee and specifically the evidence of Shamila Batohi.